Hi, hello, welcome back to the Craft Castle. Today we are going to learn how to make just a basic cake topper in Siser's Leonardo program. The Siser Romeo is a brand new machine to me, and so while I'm learning all the basics and knowledge of the program, I'm also teaching you just so we can just get the grips on what this program is capable of. We're going to start with like easy projects, and then we're going to get harder and harder. Today is going to be a super easy project, and it's just how to create a happy birthday cake topper in Leonardo. The cool thing about the Leonardo program, it's free for everyone. Doesn't even matter if you have the Siser machine or not. I like that they have this option just so then we can see what the program is before we actually go and spend money on the machine. I do have to tell you though, I have had my Romeo now for a couple weeks and I am absolutely in love with the machine. I cannot stop talking about it. Okay, so when you first open up the Leonardo program, this is what it's going to look like. We're just going to go down into design. Okay, so this is what the software looks like, or the program looks like. If you're used to using Silhouette's design program, this is going to look very familiar to you. But if you're using the Cricut Design Space, this is going to be so different, which is why I'm going to like the very basic of learning how to design files for this program, just because we need to know what all these buttons mean. And I personally love to teach project base versus what does this button mean, right? We want to know press the button, what it's going to be for the finished product. And because I am a paper crafter at heart and own my own cardstock shop, I of course want to teach cardstock projects. Okay, so we're just gonna do like a worded happy birthday cake topper. So we're gonna come down here to the text box and I'm just gonna click the text box. Okay, I am going to put in happy birthday. I am just going to click this right here. You see where it says auto weld text? I am going to uncheck that. I do not want that to be checked for this type of project. Now, what will take forever for most people, including myself, is finding a text that you want to use. Okay, so I am going to do my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle font because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually just came out in movie theaters and I actually don't want to see that movie. So I'm going to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Doesn't matter what font you choose, it's all going to be the same process. So when I click that, this is going to pop up. And I'm going to make sure, again, that this right here is not welded together. We absolutely do not want the welds. And then I'm going to press apply. So I'm going to make sure that this right here, this little lock screen is locked because I want to make this bigger just so we can see what we're doing. And you know, actually, do you see how like the H is uppercase? I don't want that. So I'm going to click back on that and I'm going to change my font over, the H and the B over to the lowercase just so it's all one same height, and then just press apply again. So you see how now it's all changed? Perfect. So then to zoom in, you're just going to press this little magnifying glass and let's just make a box around this right here. See how we just zoomed in on that? Now, if you wanted to zoom out, the easiest way to do that is just press this like 100% and see how it zooms back out. Okay, so now with just that happy birthday, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to pass and then ungroup pass. So now when we click out of it and we click on our letters, do you see how now we can move everything freely? Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to take this line right here. I'm going to drag it up. And you know what? I've decided that I want to group this line. So now with the group, I'm going to right click and press group. And I'm going to select this top line, right click and press group again. Selecting both of these lines, I'm just going to make sure down here on the space objects, I'm going to align it horizontally. See how that H like moved over? That's perfect. I wanted to make sure that happy was completely centered in birthday. I'm just going to use my mouse clicks and I'm just going to drag up birthday just a little bit to where it all connects. Just to make sure everything is centered, I am going to select everything again and press that center button. I'm telling you, I personally am a stickler for things not being centered. Okay, so going over into what has brought me to where we are, this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Do you see how we have a black and then we have a green, right? If we go back over into Leonardo, we can see that we only have black. So I need that green. Selecting both, I'm going to Command C and Command V, which is copy and paste. It will look like nothing happened, but we can just drag down and we have a whole nother thing right here. Okay, going back over into the top one, I'm going to select just the happy and I'm gonna right click and press ungroup. Birthday, doing the same thing, right click and press ungroup. Now I'm gonna select everything at the very top, and I'm gonna go into path, and I'm gonna do weld. So now everything is stuck together. If you wanted to rearrange things, move things around, respell things, the time was before we pressed the weld button. Okay, now what I wanna do is right click, do paths. I'm gonna break paths. See how like everything just like went weird? So let me press this caret button, selecting just that top portion. Let me just drag this up. Okay, and you can see that this right here is left and we have this right here. So before I go ahead and do that, I'm gonna Command Z, which is go back. I'm gonna take this top portion and I am going to change the color over to green. Now I'm gonna click that big green piece. I'm just only going to click that. I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna arrange it to the back. So now that you see, like you can see everything. So the reason why I did this is because do you see that down here, these are actually cutouts and it looks different. If we were to just have this and this be our final look, do you see how we are missing those cutouts? So before we do anything else, what I'm gonna do is we're here, we're back to, we sent it to the back. Okay, before we do anything else, I'm gonna use my magnifying tool and I'm gonna zoom in on those like 3 little holes that we had, or it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna zoom in on those 4 holes. I'm gonna go back over here into the arrow tool and I'm gonna select just the holes. So select one, shift on the keyboard and another, click that 3rd and then the 4th. I'm gonna go up into paths and then weld. Now I'm gonna still have those clicked. I'm gonna press shift on my keyboard and then that green backer. And then I'm gonna go into paths and then I'm gonna slice intersect. Now it looked like nothing happened, but let's use that little 100%. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna take that green backer piece, I'm gonna drag it up. You see how now we have the cutouts in there? And before we didn't. That's perfect. Okay, now everything else, I am just gonna select it all and I'm gonna delete it. So then what you're gonna be left with is this black piece, or this back green piece. And then we're gonna have this right here. If we drag this up and put it over the top, that's like what our thing is going to look like. Okay, so to make the cutting process a lot cleaner, I'm gonna do this is magnifying glass. I'm gonna zoom in on just that happy birthday. Going back over into the arrow tool. Okay, let's click that happy and we're going to right click and press ungroup. If we go over here into the H, do you see how we have this like little piece that's right here? We can click on it and then delete it and it will delete. Doing the same thing, we have this right here, we can delete it. I don't want the ones that are just going to be stragglers. You could cut them out and you can glue them, hand glue them back into your cake topper, but like those small little pieces are gonna be a pain in the butt. So I am not interested in that. You can keep them if you want. So we got that one, delete it, that one, delete it. Okay, so going into birthday, doing the same thing. Since we have it grouped, I'm gonna right click and press ungroup. And then for the B, I am going to leave this big piece right here because if we delete it, then we won't be able to read that it actually is a B. But I am going to click the smaller weird pieces and just delete what I don't want. Same thing with the R. I'm gonna leave the big portion and just delete the small pieces. Now, over here, you see how my Y is cut off? We can use this hand tool and we can just drag over. Then you want to press that arrow tool again. And we're going to just select the inside. Okay, when we have that done, I'm going to zoom out. So just using that 100%. So I'm going to select everything that's black, the happy and birthday, and I'm going to go into paths and then weld. So now this right here is one solid piece. This right here is one solid piece. We are making a cake topper, remember? And every cake topper has like a front and a back. I don't necessarily put like happy birthday backwards on the back. However, when I am gluing a stick to my cake topper, I always like to hide the ugly. You got the weirdness from the mat, you got the ugliness of the glue, and you got the back of the stick. Like, I don't want that. I want to hide the ugly. So I'm going to select that green piece and I'm going to Command C and Command V, which is copy and paste. It will look like nothing happened, but I got it right here. Now with this one, I want to mirror this. So I'm going to go down to scale And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mirror horizontally. So one's going to be backwards, one's going to be forwards. I will show this to you when we get to the gluing process. It will make sense why I did that. Okay, to resize this, I'm going to select everything that is going to be my cake topper. And I personally love to make cake toppers 6.5 inches wide. I feel like that's a good standard size for a cake topper, but when you're making a cake topper, just make it to the size that your cake is. But 6.5, I feel like is like a standard size cake topper. If you are used to a Cricut Design Space program, you will know that anything on your project board, it doesn't matter where it is. If you go over into Send Design, everything pops over to the cut screen. However, with this program, if you are used to using Silhouette, you have to put it on side your project board. This is my project board right here. We have it set to, go over here to Artboard, it's set to 12 by 12. If it's not on there, if I go over to Send Design, it says nothing's there. It's because nothing is there. You're gonna want to take everything over and put it over here. That being said, if you only wanted to cut this, we only have this on the project board. We're gonna go to Send Design and then something else will pop up. So because I want to cut all 3 of those pieces, I'm gonna put all 3 on the board. Doesn't matter where it's at. I'm gonna go to Send Design. Now I am going to do all my artwork that fits on the page. So everything that's on that 12 by 12 square, I wanna cut. You can choose to not separate by color. However, I am going to separate by color. So this right here, most of the time, like if you have 3 separate pieces, let's say we had one black, one green, and then one yellow. I would do the move each layer to the origin, but because we have 2 objects that are like of the same color, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna go to use current page location, and then I'm gonna press send. So we have this whole new box that pops up. So when we're over here, this right here is going to be your black that you're gonna cut out. I'm gonna move this over to the bottom left. When you are working with the Siser design program, you wanna put everything in the bottom left. I know if you're using a Cricut, it's in the top left. We're gonna go into that green, and you see how there is 2 right here. If you wanted to rearrange these, we can right click because you see how they're grouped. We can go into paths and then ungroup paths. And do you see how now we have 2 separate pieces? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag this bottom left, same like we did before. And I'm gonna be using a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. So I am just arranging this to the bottom left. I'm gonna use the full 12 by 12. I'm gonna be using a cutting mat. If you are using vinyl or HTV, anything that's not punching through your material, you can use it without a mat. I'm gonna use a cutting mat. Do you see how now it like changes a little bit? The look of it changes. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my machine on. Okay, 2 things that you're going to know that are very different when using your Siser if you're used to using a Cricut craft cutter. Your housing, your like blade housing is always over to the left, which is normal. However, we don't have to just use it over there. I can drag this over using my touchpad and set up my machine like this to where I can use it over here on the right. That being said, do you see this like little flapper thing? You push that down in order to put your mat or your material in, and then when you have that done, you just flip it back up. The other thing too is at the very front of your machines and on the back, you can see that there is like these black rolling tools. We can maneuver these to where it will hold our material in, our mats in, just perfectly. So these black pieces are what holds your material on. If it's not on there, nothing will be grabbing your material. Okay, so I'm gonna eject this. I have these right here set up that is going to hold my material. I'm gonna plug my machine in, and then I am going to start with the plain cardstock. I'm going to put this to the bottom left corner. Remember, all cardstock is going to go on the bottom left. It doesn't matter what material you're using. Just to flatten this down. Now I'm going to line this up with the very edge of my machine. So right here, I'm going to flip this up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my head into the corner over here. So we're going to hit this button. See, this is moving. I'm going to line this head up to the very corner of my mat. And because we get to change the location of our head, what I like to do is then do an area test. When you do this, what we're watching for is where this blade is going. So anywhere that this blade is going, that's where it's going to cut. So we'll do an area test. Press yes. Okay, and then you can see my blade is to the right of my mat, like it is getting cut off. So I'm going to press cancel on my machine. I'm going to rehome it back to the center. You can do this one of two ways. You can keep fidgeting with the head, making sure that it's perfect. Or what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move these over just so they're not so close to the edges. Okay, doing the same thing, I'm going to do an area test. Press yes. And watch it go. As long as it stays within my material, we shouldn't have anything go wrong. Okay, looks perfect. Everything's great. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into cut settings, and I'm going to select my settings. So the cool thing is every single time you use this, it always remembers your last cut settings. The last time I used it, I used glitter cardstock. I'm going to click this name right here, and you can add in your own cut settings. So the cool thing about Siser is that we get to change our speed and our force by ourselves. Like, we don't get like preloaded designs for that. Kind of a pain in the butt to learn your settings, but once you have them, you get to save it in here. So I'm going to press the plain cardstock, and I'm going to press load. My settings are 13 speed, 36 force. Okay, when we're done doing that, because I've already done the area test, now all I'm going to do is press send to cutter and press yes. Now my machine is going to cut my plain cardstock. Okay, now that that's done, all you're going to do is you're going to take your arrow tool, and we're just going to eject it out. And then we're going to peel off our cardstock. See, look at that. Look at how stinking cute that is. Like, perfectly cut, just amazing. I'm going to make sure and keep this one backwards, but just to see that there's just looks absolutely great. Okay, let's take off the excess of the cardstock. Doing the same thing we did before, we're going to put that black cardstock in the bottom left. I'm going to put my lever down. And now this time, because I already have this head in the bottom corner, I am just going to line up my corner with my head and then press it up so you can see that my blade is in the bottom corner of that. Going back over to the software, I'm going to click on the black. So, you know, with the Cricuts, it automatically changes for you. You have to manually do that in the Romeo software. Okay, because I changed mats and I moved things around, I'm going to do another area test. This is just to make sure we don't waste material, because the last thing you want to do is waste anything. And it looks like it's going to be perfect. I'm going to change my cut settings over because I did use plain. We're going to go to plain and hit the cardstock, glitter cardstock, and press load. When that's done, we're going to go back over to our design program. We're going to do send to cutter and just press yes. Now my cutter is going to be cutting out the black portion of this. Okay, now that it's done, we're just going to eject that machine. See how it just cut beautifully. Keep ejecting. Okay, now I'm just going to take this off. And then we're going to peel this black piece. Look how well this cut cardstock. Look at how stinking gorgeous that is. Okay, we are done with the program. So if you wanted to go back, you would just go back to design, and there it is. Okay, to glue a cake topper together, we just have the very top piece. I'm gonna be using my favorite precision craft glue. It's made by Super Tight. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of glue to the very back of this. We don't need a whole lot of glue. Paper is meant to lay flat. Okay, taking the piece that is forward to us. I'm gonna lay this down. I don't wanna wiggle this around too much. Okay, now we need the inside portions of the B and the R. So I'm just gonna lift this up, take this small little piece, grab a little dot. Okay, if you use too much glue, which that's what I did for this B, what I always like to do is taking my palm, because it's always the cleanest, and just dab off the glue. Do you see how now there's no more glue right there? But it's right here. So my palms are always the cleanest, and then it just dries clear. But taking off that glue is important just so you don't have this like weird glue mark. Doing the same thing, there's a little bit of glue left over. Just gonna dab it off, and then here is the D. And there is our cake topper. Okay, so remember when I did this, right? And I had it backwards. The reason for that is when you put things on the mat, especially like when you're cutting and stuff like that, if you have a really dirty mat, the underside of it kind of gets dirty. Now I'm using a brand new mat, so it didn't end up looking like that, but just for good practice. Also on that note, we're about ready to glue a stick. And if you were selling these, I don't think that a customer would appreciate something that looked like that, and then you would be able to see the glue. So what happens is we're gonna glue this on top of this. Do you see how now the ugly is all hidden? That's so cute, right? Okay, so I'm gonna be using a clear cake stick that I offer in my cardstock shop. You could also use a wood cake stick. If you're using wood, then you can go ahead and just use hot glue to glue this. However, these clear acrylic cake sticks, you need something stronger than hot glue. And so I like to use silicone for this. Silicone really does grab the plastic really well. So I'm just gonna do a bead of glue, and I'm putting it on my cake topper towards the middle, and I just eyeball it. This isn't like exact science. Okay, so for the rest of the cake topper, I'm just gonna use some glue on the back of my cake topper, everywhere else but the cake stick. My paper glue is not strong enough for the acrylic, so that I'm going to use Mark glue. I'm gonna put it on top of the cake stick. So you have glue on the bottom and the top. You could also just use the silicone glue for the entire backer if you wanted to. I just like only using it for this spot because the silicone glue is kind of pricey, so it just kind of helps save on price. Okay, making sure that everything is lined up correctly, we're just gonna put these two together. And there is our finished cake topper that we made from start to finish in the design program, and it did not take very long, and it was actually very easy to make. So the very next project I have in store for you is how to make a birthday banner, because that is like the next step into making any type of party decorations. If you're a paper crafter, that's what you make. All right, y'all, I sure hope I inspired you to create, and I will see you later.